Hello students, welcome to this channel. I hope you're all doing well, you're all happy and healthy. Today we are going to study the Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy, which has been prescribed in your ISC poetry syllabus. But before we begin, I request you, please subscribe to this channel and press the like button if you liked the video. Let us start with the introduction to the poet Thomas Hardy. He was one of the most prolific English novelists and poets of the late 19th century. Prolific means that he was highly productive. He created a large body of work. Through his novels, he reflected the social and moral concerns of his age. So there are famous novels that he's written such as Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Mayor of Casterbridge and Jude the Obscure. However, Hardy's lyric poetry is by far his best known and most widely read. Now, what is lyric poetry? Lyric poetry is a type of poetry in which the personal emotions are expressed. It is written in the first person. His poetry explores a fatalistic outlook against the dark, rugged landscape of his native Dorset. Now, Dorset is a county in England. It is located on the coast and it is famous for its cliffs, which are studied by geologists. The landscape over there is rugged, which means rocky, rough, and uneven. So, this is the setting for his poems. A fatalistic outlook means that a person who has a fatalistic outlook feels powerless and thinks that there are powerful universal forces around him that control everyone's lives and events. He rejected the Victorian idea of a benevolent, that is, a kind-hearted, compassionate, loving and generous, protecting God. Much of his poetry reads as a sardonic lament on the bleakness of the human condition. A sardonic lament is a critical, mocking complaint, and bleakness means darkness and gloom. So, on reading his poetry, one would think that human beings are leading a miserable existence. His style is highly original, combining a variety of meters and stanzaic forms. Now, a variety of meters means a variety of sound patterns, and stanzaic forms means variation in the length of the stanzas. Thus, there is a variety in the manner in which his poems are structured or constructed. He did not stick to one structure or one kind of meter only. He often combines this with rough-hewn rhythms and colloquial diction. Rough-hewn rhythms means that his rhythms are not always polished or perfect. There may be a break in the rhythm. It is more informal. And colloquial diction refers to local, informal words and pronunciations. Thus, his poetry expresses pure, raw emotion through the choice of rhythm and language, making it all the more beautiful and powerful. Because, after all, poetry is an expression of the heart. And when you are expressing what you have inside your heart, you are going to be very genuine. You are not always going to be perfect. You are not always going to be polished and sophisticated. He influenced a host of later poets such as Robert Frost, W. H. Auden, Dylan Thomas, and Philip Larkin. The Darkling Thrush is a nature poem with the theme of hope. The poet describes nature as he sees it, his feelings associated with it, and gives a message of hope in the end. So the poet is looking upon nature and he sees nature in a particular way, depending on how he is feeling at that moment. But in the end, he gives us a message of hope. The poem begins with a bleak picture of despair and dejection, as the poet describes in lyrical descriptive detail the dying of the old world at the turn of the century. It is the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. The Industrial Revolution had taken place at this time and it had brought about many changes in the life, in the beliefs and values of the people. The poet is upset at this. He is upset and he is apprehensive. He is very anxious about the future because the future is unknown. He does not know what is going to happen next. And he feels that the human race is decaying because the old way of life is now completely getting wiped out. He finds little cause for hope or joy around him. Suddenly, he hears the song of a thrush or a songbird, which spreads warmth and hope into the earlier desolate and dead landscape. The landscape is still the same. It is just the poet's perspective that has changed because of the song. The poet finds his spirits rising, and with it the realization that there is still hope and joy in the world. Now let us read the poem slowly and understand the meaning. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. Now, who is the speaker? The poet is the speaker. He speaks in the first person using the pronoun I. What is he doing? He is leaning upon a coppice gate. Now, what is a coppice gate? It is a gate that opens onto the woods. If you open the gate, you will be able to walk into the woods. And what is the meaning of coppice? Coppice means an area in the woods where the trees are periodically cut for getting timber and firewood. And when you cut the trees, at that time what happens is you pave the way for growth of new trees. So it is evening time and the poet is leaning upon the gate. You see, he says, I leant upon a coppice gate. So he is leaning upon the gate. What does this suggest? It suggests that he is dejected. He needs support. And the gate tells us that it is a way into another place. Now, since it leads into a coppice, we can understand that it is a relatively unknown place. So you can open the gate, you can go into that place, but the poet does not know what lies there, or we may say what lies ahead. I can open the gate and walk into the coppice, but what is there in the coppice, I do not really know because I have never been there. So this conveys his feelings about the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. So when you open the gate and you walk into the coppice, it is like walking into the 20th century. Now, because of the Industrial Revolution, economic activities and lives of people have changed. So the poet is feeling very upset and insecure at this change, which is why he feels that it is like walking into an unknown area. It is a time when the frost is spectre grey. Now note the capital letter in frost. What does the capital letter suggest? It suggests personification of the frost. So it is a wintry, frosty evening. The landscape is barren and grey or lifeless as a ghost, which is why the poet also uses the words spectre grey. Right? Spectre means ghost. The poet next mentions winter's dregs. So he says, winter's dregs made desolate. The capital letter W in winter again suggests personification. Dregs mean the last bits of something or leftovers. So what does this mean? It means that the severe winter is nearing its end, but still it is very harsh in its intensity. In fact, it is so harsh that it is making the landscape and the atmosphere desolate, which means lonely and deserted. What is the weakening eye of day now? Okay, please underline it. It means the sun. Why is it described as the weakening eye of day? Because it is evening and the sun is setting. So it is no longer as bright and fiery as it is during the day. This evening is desolate. No one is around. Why? Because it is winter. So in this manner, in the first four lines, we get an atmosphere of bleakness, of gloom and lifelessness. So it shows us that everything is still, and this stillness is deeply sad and disturbing. Frost, winter, and the weakening eye of day show utter lack of warmth and life. The world is a sad place indeed, or so it appears to the poet. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. So when the poet looks around at the sky, he sees tangled vine stems that appear as if they have carved themselves in the sky. Now what are bind stems? They are dried stems. They are dry and leafless. Bind stems means they are the stems of creepers. They are dried up and leafless, and they are all tangled up. So here what is happening? The bind stems like strings of broken lyres. Here the poet is using a simile and comparing the stems to the strings of broken lyres. Lyre is a musical instrument with strings, and it looks just like a small harp. It used to be played by ancient Greeks. Now, why does the poet compare the tangled bind stems to the strings of a broken lyre? Because he wants to suggest that there is no music, there is no joy, no melody, no harmony in life anymore. There is no music in life. The music is gone. Why? Because the instrument is broken. The dry stems stand for barrenness. Since they are tangled up, it suggests chaos, uncertainty, and complications in life. Now, according to the poet, this is how devoid of joy life feels as he stands on the threshold of a new era. So he's standing there, he's about to enter into the new century, but he's not happy at all. He's anxious, he's sad, he feels lifeless, he feels devoid of all enthusiasm. The poet then, he goes on to say that there was no one outside at that time. All mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fire. So nobody was outside. All mankind means all the people who haunted nigh. What is haunted nigh? Means the people who used to wander about nearby. Okay, but they had withdrawn to the comfort of their homes where warmth and food was provided by the household fire. So there is a contrast between the atmosphere outside and the atmosphere within the house. Now, interestingly, you will see that the poet has used the word haunted. Why is he saying haunted? Because he is suggesting that even other people are not feeling the same way as they used to before about life. They have all been reduced to ghosts or shadows of their former selves. The changes in society and the ways of life are very difficult to adjust to. So they feel that they are not even alive anymore. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlined, his crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind its death lament. As the poet looks around at the land, he sees it as a corpse, that is a dead body. It is winter, and the sharp features of the land appear to him just like the laid out corpse of the 19th century. Now note the capital letter C in century. That is the how we know that he has personified the 19th century. It is treated as a person who is dead and whose body is now lying stretched out. The cloudy canopy. Canopy means cover. Okay, and cloudy canopy means the cloudy sky. So that cloudy sky is its crypt or tomb. The wind that is blowing is its death song. The wind is lamenting the death of the 19th century. Why does the poet feel so? Because he is very upset. Because life in the agricultural society is getting destroyed by rapid industrialization in England. So he mourns the death of the customs and traditions of agricultural England. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. So the ancient pulse of germ and birth. Now this refers to the seeds which have now become hard and dry and they have shrunk in size. The poet uses the word ancient pulse because since time immemorial, nature has ordained that life is supposed to sprout through seeds. So pulse over here refers to the power or force of life. Germ is that from which life springs forth or germinates. Now this possibility of new life, that is the seeds, they have now shrunk in size and they have become hard and dry. It will take a long time for these seeds to bring forth new life. And who knows when that might happen. Because at this point everything seems so hopeless that the poet says that every spirit upon earth seems as fervorless or unenthusiastic as him. There is no passion or energy left among any being on earth anymore. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead in a full-hearted even song of joy ill-limited. So the tone of the poem suddenly changes in this stanza from acute despair to hope. As the poet is continuously ruminating or thinking about the death of the 19th century and feeling very sad, all of a sudden, that is, at once, he hears a voice. A voice arose. The word arose signifies the lifting of spirits. Thereby, it shows that the gloom or the sadness is also getting lifted. Why? Because it is a voice that has woken up and broken into song. The voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, that is, above the poet's head. The fact that it was overhead signifies that it was not just physically but also emotionally and spiritually elevated, that is, at a higher level compared to the poet. The twigs looked bleak, which means even the twigs were sad, even they looked sad. But from among the bleakness, this voice arose and soared in a full-hearted, even song. Now, what is an even song? An even song is a song that is sung during evening worship. And the voice and the song expressed joy illimited, which means limitless joy. Now, the question is, who was singing this song and why? An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, in blast beruffled plume, has chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. So it was an aged thrush, an old bird that was singing this song. A thrush is a songbird. It is brownish in color. And this bird, the bird that was singing, was a old bird. It was weak, it was thin, it was small, and even its feathers were very scruffy. They were disheveled because of the wind, maybe. This is what the words blast beruffled plume mean. The bird was not in good shape at all. He was probably nearing the end of his life, which is why maybe he must have chosen to fling his song, which means to sing with all his heart. Note one word, note the word chosen, which means that the bird had made a conscious choice to sing joyfully with all its heart, and it was singing a song of worship. So we all have choices how to react in a particular situation, how to respond in a particular situation. The choice lies with us. The poet is depressed, everybody is depressed. But in this depressing scenario, the thrush has chosen to sing joyfully with all its heart and to sing a song of worship. Even though it was the last day of the century, the bird himself was in very bad shape. He had decided to fling, which means to cast his soul ecstatically upon the growing gloom. So this was an act of hope and desperation. The bird had made a choice to sing joyfully and to use all the power in its soul to cast joy upon the sadness, means to cover the sadness with his joy, to try to lift himself up. This is a reminder of Jesus Christ's sufferings and death on the cross, followed by his resurrection that brought hope to mankind. Note one thing, that the thrush's song was perceived by the poet as an even song, which means a song of worship. Now let us see what was the impact of the thrush's song in the next stanza. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good night air some blessed hope whereof he knew and I was unaware. So the poet is looking around him and trying to find out that what is the reason for this bird's happiness. He is singing with so much joy. So what is the reason? But he's looking around and he can't find any reason. So he comes to a conclusion that definitely there is still some hope. The only difference is that this bird, he is aware of that hope. He is spreading it through his song, but I am not aware of it. So let us look at the stanza in detail. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around. So the poet was surprised to hear the song, because as he looked around, he could not find any cause or reason for such ecstatic or joyful singing or carolings. He feels that terrestrial things are far or nigh around, means whether the terrestrial things are far away or nearby, they don't have any reason to be happy. Terrestrial things mean things on the earth. Simply put, nothing around him seemed happy or appeared to be the cause of joy for anyone. So then what was the reason for the bird's happiness? That I could think there trembled through his happy good night air some blessed hope whereof he knew and I was unaware. So the poet surmised that the bird knew that there was still hope in the world. That is why in the evening, before sleep, he was singing so happily and hope was trembling or vibrating or spreading through his melodious notes. Now here the poet personifies hope by using the capital letter H, and he calls it a blessed hope. Who could have blessed it? None other than God. The bird is able to feel and receive the blessing of hope. The bird knows this hope, and the poet surmises that the bird is spiritually elevated or maybe more in tune with nature and cosmic forces and processes, which human beings are not. So that is why he says that some blessed hope whereof he knew, he is aware of it, and I was unaware. I, a human being, am not aware of it. Okay, note down three things with regard to this stanza. First, an evensong is a prayer song sung in the evening. Second, carolings remind us of Christmas carols, which means religion and celebration. Third, hope is one of the three Christian virtues. Which are the three Christian virtues? First is faith, second is hope, and the third is charity, also known as love. So let us conclude that the poem ends on a note of hope. So the message is a message of hope. Although the speaker does not voice this explicitly, he does not clearly tell us that, I am very hopeful, but we can understand that through the thrush's song, he too is going to regain his hope. Till now, he was in despair, but because of the thrush's song, now he is also going to become hopeful.